This is John Gilroy from the Federal Tech Podcast.
This is Dr. Tim Robinson from Worldwide Technology.
And today we're going to talk about Sassy. Hit the music, Claude.
Welcome to the Federal Tech Podcast, where industry leaders share insights on innovation with a focus on reducing cost and improving security for federal technology. If you like the Federal Tech Podcast, please support us by giving us a rating and review on Apple Podcast.
Welcome to the Federal Tech Podcast. My name is John Gilroy, and I'll be your moderator. Today we have Dr. Tim Robinson, Consulting Solutions Architect at Worldwide Technology, in the studio today. And the reason why he's here is he's going to tell you everything you need to know about Sassy, S-A-S-E. And who else would be better than him to describe it? He's like the Forrest Gump of technology. He's been here, he's been there, he's been in the military, he's got all these academic degrees, and he claims to have top-notch humor. But Tim, I don't know. You have to show me the top-notch humor for me to believe it, buddy.
This is far too I'm going to pay you a little bit more than what we agreed upon before the show.
Even that bribe with that good introduction, huh?
That was awesome. That was amazing. Thank you so much. I am super excited, super happy to be here.
Okay, so hold on to your hats, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to use a four-letter word. Are you ready? FCC, come get me. It is S-A-S-E. This is a four-letter word we're going to talk about today. And Tim, what in the world does that stand for?
That's a great question, and I'm going to try not to get myself in trouble.
Using four-letter words, huh?
Because vendors are watching, so I need to make sure I say the right thing. So, SASE stands for Secure Access Service Edge. A lot of people think of it as a framework. I think of it as more of a paradigm shift in how we leverage security. So I'm going to take a little time, if you don't mind, John. I want to talk a little bit about how Sassy came to be and just sort of develop it so we can sort of talk about this throughout the rest of this podcast. If you think about it, we work in offices. We typically we used to work in offices, and all of our data used to reside in a data center, nice and neat and nestled. You knew where it was, you know what I mean? You didn't have a lot of the problems that you currently have now. And traffic to that data was kept in the confines of that agency, of that building, of that organization you were at. Now, fast forward, I'll just talk about the last 5 years or so. Stuff happens, rent goes up, power, space, and cooling. That stuff gets very expensive. Your workforce could get larger, and most workforces have gotten larger. So what you tend to do is you spread out geographically. So that has large implications for security. And then other stuff happens that we have no control over, like COVID. So for a number of reasons, we have kind of a much more globally displaced or mobile workforce. And not only that, a lot of our data has moved to this thing that we talk about all the time. It's called the cloud. And that gives us kind of two decisions, or you can call them bad if you want to. A lot of people call these decisions bad. You can do two things. Either you can send your remote users first to your data center. So I'm at home. Now I'm no longer in the building. I'm at home. Now I have to go all the way to the data center to get my data. That's one way of doing it. Or you can have mobile users go and access your software as a service applications directly via the internet and the cloud. What that does for you is that gives you kind of a faster experience. So no longer am I sitting in my cubicle at work. I'm at home. I have to get to that data that's at work. That can be cumbersome. That can induce a boatload of latency in what I'm doing, slow down my workday, and frowns all around, right? So what organizations typically do, they put data in the cloud. And then I can go and access that data from the cloud a lot easier, a lot quicker. One of the concerns I'll tell you, John, and then I'll leave it at that. One of the concerns that we have is that you're bypassing this nice security stack that I told you. Remember I said we had a data center. You're no longer inside of a building. You're at home. You still have to get to that data in the data center. Well, you have to go through a security stack in that data center to get there. When this paradigm is slightly different, and I'll talk about why in a little bit. So what are my concerns with having a remote workforce that has to work from home or work from a different country, a different state to access data in my data center? the volume of traffic increases. Remember, I said COVID. That pushed a lot of workers outside of the building, right? So now everybody has to get back to the building. So now you have an increase of traffic that's going to your data center. There's all sorts of threats because now you're at home doing all sorts of things on your laptop, right? So how secure is that laptop? Another thing we have to deal with is updating appliance, updating software. A lot of these things can be cumbersome, can be complex, and time consuming. So let me summarize, and then I'll give it back to you, John. You know, I get excited when I talk about IT stuff. So Sassy Secure Access Service Edge, it's an architecture, right? It offers a worldwide fabric of network security capabilities to any users, connect any users from anywhere, their devices, their applications, and their platforms, anywhere at any given time, with a reduction of impact on the user experience, because data is now traversing a most optimal path to get to your application. You're no longer going from home, going into your data center, traversing that security stack, getting to your data, coming back out of that security stack, and coming to your desktop at home. You're going directly to your applications through another security stack, if you set it up right, in the cloud to get to your software applications that reside in the cloud. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, so SE allows for a couple things. Number one, allows for scalability. That also allows you to avoid one stack that goes into your data center. And Absolutely. It also allows for compliance because it's handled from one central location. So those are three main benefits, I think, for federal people. Now, federal technology people are listening to this, and they're listening to you and go, that Tim, Dr. Robinson, he must be some academic guy, some little 95-pound weakling reading books all day long. But if you go to his background, finds out that you were in the Marine Corps and you served tough places, huh?
Yeah, I like to tell people all the time, I carried a rifle and a router.
Oh, I know who you stole that from. You stole that from David Bassick, didn't you?
Oh, we're not talking about David Bassick. He's old news. I'm the new guy.
A rifle and a router. That's his line. I love that line, isn't it?
It's awesome. But it's kind of true. Lots of experience. What I would like to tell people is that, when I was in the Marine Corps as a communications information systems officer, everything that you have on your desk from your phone, your computer, we project those services and those devices onto the data field so that we can make decisions and we can become successful in everything that we do. So lots and lots and lots of fun of functioning as an IT guy in the Marines.
And the reason I brought that up is because Washington, D.C. has a place called Georgetown University, Georgetown Hill. There's Healy Hall there, and it's a classic ivory tower. And there's a lot of people pontificate, and they have no idea what's going on in the street. But someone like you, you started from, the trenches and worked your way up. So I think anything that you say to this audience is going to have a tremendous amount of resonance. It's not going to be, no, it's going to be effective because you've been in a situation where you had to have secure communication. And we laugh about a rifle and a router, but today I think the warfighter is increasingly depending more and more on digital information from all kinds of different edge devices, which comes us back to secure service at edge, doesn't it?
Absolutely. 100% agree with you.
So the question I have is, I'm a mere mortal. I'm just looking at the outside. And so how do people fail in trying to implement SASE?
So, man, you know what? I will say this, and this is more of Tim Robinson speaking, right? I think a lot of people fail to understand what the actual problem is. SASE is not for every organization. Sure, we're moving towards that. Sure, you can see the federal government making a huge push towards the cloud. But there are other technologies and things that we're concerned with as well. For example, like zero trust. For example, Comply to Connect. I think if you have a security paradigm that has failed, you've bypassed a few steps. One is to write down what your actual requirements are. What I do a lot at Worldwide, John, is I go in and we perform workshops. And these workshops help us meet the customer to where they are. There's a term we use, it's called ideation. We get a whiteboard, and this is where I break out the clipboard and the, my glasses, and I push them up my nose and the pens and the markers, and I start just writing over the whiteboard, understanding from a people, processes, and technology standpoint, what should we be doing? Because a lot of times customers ask for things, but they don't necessarily need those things, or they need a derivation of those things to achieve the common goal. So when I walk in these workshops, the first thing I do is I go up to a board and I say, hey, what do we want to get out of this workshop? Is Sassy, you want to implement Sassy? Is that truly the problem? What are your concerns that you have up front? So to answer your question, John, the first thing you have to understand is what's the problem in the first place. And if Sassy is a failure to implement, that's probably because we're working on the wrong problem.
Start with the end in mind. A famous man said that. I know that line. That's what you're doing there. By the way, if you're listening to this, you may want to visit WWT.com and take a look at his company's website. So I've known about WWT for years, and they have an office in downtown D.C. with all kinds of demo facilities. But if you're listening to this and there's snow on the ground, or you're watching the Super Bowl tomorrow or something, and you're listening to this silly podcast, you can go to WWT.com and then take a very close look, because it's going to remind you of the YouTube site. It's kind of like a YouTube for nerds.
For IT guys. We're better than YouTube, but if I could,
it looks great.
It's amazing, right? If I could just double click on the point you just made, our Advanced Technology Center, man, I will tell you, when I first came to Worldwide, it was shocking that the capability that this lab provided. I call it a lab, but it's not really that. To me, it's a digital playground. It's like Disney World for IT guys. Everything and anything that you could think of is probably in our ATC. It spans across the campuses, multiple buildings, racks and racks and racks of equipment. And what you can do as a user, if you're listening to this, you could go out to WWT.com, make an account, and you could do things like look up Sassy. And I can guarantee you there should be a lab there. There's white papers, there's documents, there's other podcasts with me on there talking about these types of things. But you can go there and you can navigate through these labs. You can learn what Sassy is, what are the top vendors in Sassy, how you implement it, what are the roadblocks, just like John asked earlier, what are the roadblocks in implementing Sassy, those types of things. So I would ask that all of you go out to worldwidetechnology.com or WWT.com, get an account, take a look at our Advanced Technology Center, surf around, get yourself educated.
Yeah, it's a nice site. It's a lot of work into it.
Thank you. I wish I could take all the credit for building that website, but
I'll take the credit. So I am a mere mortal here, and I'm looking at this problem, and I'm trying to get a perspective on it. I try to detach myself and say, okay, so if you look at technology the last 15 or 20 years, what you see is this wide area network, okay, and then something called a software-defined wide area network, SD-WAN, came about, and people started using that, and there's certain limitations in that. And it seems to me that the limitations involved in SD-WAN probably have something to do with security, and is this an enhanced SD-WAN? Is that really is this a software-defined wide area network with stacks of security built in? Is that what it is?
So let me, I think the easiest way to put this is I talked about the data center and people going into their agency and sitting at their computer and logging into their data center. And there's a security stack there. One of the great explanations I will have for Sassy is think about that security stack virtualized in the cloud. So not only do you have faster access to your applications that are in the cloud, you can put a security stack right there in the cloud. So you can traverse that security stack before getting to your applications, making sure you are who you say you are, you're not doing anything malicious, and your data remains safe. So the idea is the same risk that you have on-prem, we call it on-prem, I keep calling it data center, but your risks that are on-premises, your security stack there is supporting your risk. Same scenario with Sassy in the cloud. There's a security stack there, network access there, that's going to do the same thing for you with Sassy.
But Tim, I was just handed a telegram from the White House, and I'm not allowed to go 20 minutes without saying zero trust architecture. So
oh my God.
I said it because I have to say it. It's a mandate from the White House.
I'm shocked.
And the same thing with you. The next time you get to 7-Eleven, you got to say zero trust architecture. Then you're going down to the store, and every 20 you have to say it in this town, don't you? Mandate.
I cannot, John. I mean, we're being facetious right now, but I tell you, I cannot talk for 5 minutes without somebody asking me.
I know.
but the bigger question is how do we implement zero trust? So I'm not sure what your question is around zero trust, but let's go. Give it to me. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, no, I guess Sassy can help with the deployment of zero trust architecture. I assume that's part and parcel of one of its strengths.
Sure. So what I would tell you is when we open, I called Sassy a paradigm. I look at zero trust is more of a framework, and I'll tell you why. So zero trust is more data focused, where I believe Sassy is more connection focused. To keep it simple, Dave and I were talking about this, and we both thought that, when we think of SASE, we think of how traffic is headed out to public destinations. With zero trust, we think of it as the who, what, when, how people access my data. So where zero, SASE is more connection focused, zero trust is more data focused, and who has access to the data, who should have access to that data, because we don't trust anybody with the zero trust in a zero trust architecture. So zero trust, and specifically the network access piece of zero trust, is about securely connecting users to their mission application. Sounds similar to SASE, right? Yeah. But it's different because we tend to focus on our data. We tend to make sure that data is tagged appropriately, because when you look at identity of people and their access management, you want to make sure the right people have the right access to that data. Now, I'm not saying that some SASE vendors don't have some of that functionality built in, but when you talk from a historical standpoint, SASE, connection to my data, my applications, zero trust is not trusting anybody, not trusting anything, all the way down to the device on the network. We don't even trust devices on the network, giving that device, that person, the appropriate access to the appropriate data. So they can be complementary in a way.
You mentioned your colleague David Vasek just a few minutes ago, and I wonder, when it comes to trust, I wonder if he's going to trust you after he finds out that you stole his line, in the Marines, I carried a rifle and a router, because I may be the first one to tell him that.
I don't know, but Dave and I go back. He's a good dude. He's a smart guy. We're both Marines, so we have that going for us.
So my question is, this terminology began in 2019, and apparently it's just blown up. If you go to Google, you get 200 million search results. I mean, so people are blowing up and talking about it a whole lot. And so I imagine that there are other companies that are trying to deploy this technology. So where's the fail points? I mean, where's the problem? If you look at a used car, this one has bad brakes, and the other, this one has bad transmission. So where are the typical fail points when someone tries to deploy a SASE solution?
So I will tell you this, and again, this is Tim Robinson. We're gonna separate Worldwide Technology and all of my partners from Tim Robinson. I can do that, right? I can.
Oh yeah.
This 15 seconds. So with SASE, it's not, to me, it wouldn't be suitable for, say, a deployed combat unit, right? If I was to advise a combatant commander, if I was to advise a battlefield commander on technologies like this, probably wouldn't be that. But I will say, if I'm looking at the Marine Corps or the Navy, think about recruiting commands, right? You have all these recruiters all over the world, and go and grab these guys from high school, guys and gals from high school, and bringing them into our services to support our company, our country. That's an amazing SASE use case, right? No longer are you pulling open a laptop, getting ready to do a presentation at a trade show or a job fair, you know what I mean? And you having to go all the way back home, get to the data center, and pull things back out. SASE would work well for organizations like that. Other organizations, we can talk commercial now. I'm putting back on my worldwide hat now. So we can talk about organizations that have to deal with BYOD, bring your own device, multi-cloud applications. And as I said, when we open this, it's for those. We're distributed globally now. You got people working in Alaska, Hawaii, Singapore, Brazil, everywhere, and they need access to your company data. So if you're an organization like that's dealing with hyperscaling, that's moving, that's growing faster, and because you got to go make money, this is a superior use case for an organization like that.
I want to ask a question about bandwidth optimization. But first, if you're listening to this and have more questions, you want to learn more, you may want to listen to episode 22 with Tony D'Angelo. He's from Lookout, and they talk about endpoint security. So it would be good kind of handoff after this interview. Okay, the next time we do this, Tim, we're going to have like a big old whiteboard, and we're going to have a battle of the boxes in the whiteboard and go back and forth and back and forth. And you mentioned this earlier about the cloud, and then about places like Microsoft and Amazon and different ways to use the cloud. It would seem to me a benefit of this structure is just optimization of the bandwidth, isn't it? I mean, it makes it cheaper. I mean, that's the bottom line. Guess what? It's cheaper.
Absolutely. I talked about several things at the beginning. We talked about why people are moving away from sort of data center. Now, I will say most organizations won't get rid of their data center. It would probably be some type of derivation. If they're implementing Sassy, they'll probably keep their data center, but they'll also probably have applications in the cloud. So, we talked a little bit about multi-cloud, whether you have an on-prem cloud in the cloud, in Amazon or pick your cloud provider. You'll probably keep both of those. But when you're talking about optimization, I would love if our user base would go to Worldwide, pull up the Sassy Lab and do it, because it shows you, it does a better job at navigating you through how, your bandwidth is optimized by utilizing Sassy. Then I can tell you, it legitimately shows you how it's done. So I'll try to explain it in Tim Robinson's term. Really, I talked earlier about us moving our workforce away from the actual mothership, right? All of these folks have to get back into your data center. They have to get to those applications. If those applications are in the data center, you're forcing them to go to the data center, traversing that security stack, then up to the cloud where you have your applications, then back to the data center, then back out to the users. Man, that is just, you're crushing your bandwidth. You don't want to do that. If you have applications in the cloud, why not leverage a Sassy solution so you can gain access to that? So you're not putting all of that data is not traversing through your data center. That's really where your optimization is coming. And you will see in this lab how much faster it is to access your data.
WWT.com for that one.
That's it.
Well, Tim, I don't want you to get in trouble with your folks at headquarters there, but I'm going to use another 4-letter word. Okay. Uh-oh. This is going to be tough. This one is MPLS. This is kind of a traditional way of communications. And many times if you want to enhance your communication to be flexible or increase it, it may take 10 days or 2 weeks to get something done. If we change the approach with a Sassy approach, all of a sudden that gives you so much more flexibility as far as its time frame goes, doesn't it? I mean, it's a lot faster as well.
It totally is. For those of you that are listening, MPLS, multi-protocol label switching, it's really I would think of it as it is a networking technology that routes traffic shortest path first. So think of OSPF. I'm nerding out, am I? I'm totally
no. It's an old school communication technique. It's a rotary phone. Okay, this is a digital phone. That's how you best explain it. I mean, the VoIP guys can talk for 10 hours about this and go on and on and on and optimization. Right? And the term cloud originated with the telephone guys. I mean, we know that. And so we're pulling this out. But the older way to do it was inflexible and time consuming, and the newer way is extremely flexible and quick. So another on the checklist. I mean, if you're a federal information technology professional, got your little pad out there, you got Tim Robinson at the top. You go, okay, faster, it's cheaper, optimize my bandwidth. So what's left?
Right. You're absolutely right. And I'm not being mean to the MPLS gurus. I love those guys as well. But you're right. I think where we can glean efficiencies in today's workforces, and if technology is involved, we want to leverage that. I mean, that's the whole reason why we're here. If there's something that's out there that's going to help a customer have a better user experience, then we're going to recommend that. But I'll always go back to what I said at the beginning of the podcast when you asked the question, what are issues with implementing Sassy? It's really because a lot of times we'll get these policies and these directives in DoD and we'll start trying to solve the problem the wrong way. So I'm not saying one protocol is better. I'm just saying, let's take a step back. Let's talk about it. Let's come to the table. Let's have a workshop and talk about what the real problems are so that then it's not such a culture shift. Because I will tell you, John, walk into any organization, it doesn't have to be DoD, and throw out the term zero trust. And they will fight you back out of the door because it's a cultural shift. It's not just a technology shift. People have to learn new ways of doing things, especially your security guy. If my role in life is to reduce risk for the CIO and the CEO, I do things a certain way. I'm not apt to trust this new guy coming in is trying to sell me on this framework or this new technology. I want to understand how that works. And again, here's a plug for the Advanced Technology Center. If you want to know how a technology works, we do a great job at Worldwide Technology of putting together, we'll call it demonstrable labs that will show you how technology works. So again, I know I'm plugging Worldwide Technology a lot, but it truly is, John, a way for organizations to come in, understand how technologies integrate with their current infrastructure to see if it's going to improve, to see how it can improve, to see which way we should go. So then we're not getting the cart before the horse. We're looking at technology. We're seeing how that technology works in real time before we even push it into our production environment.
In 2 weeks, I'll be speaking with Dr. Elsa Schrader, and we're going to talk about machine learning. And that's an issue that they have is trust, because they may not trust the data they get. And so I think this is the brave new world here. Is technology is one thing, but humans understanding and appreciating some of the strengths and weaknesses. And so I think it's more of a human thing than a technical thing. But I think for machine language, it applies to Sassy as well. So I think it's a human thing more than anything else.
I do. If you and here's a plug for me. My dissertation was on the verification of a cyber attack. I can remember, and I won't tell you what organization I was in. You could check my LinkedIn profile, but I was in an organization, and there's this person giving the morning brief. You go into these government organizations, you give them the morning brief. Hey, we're susceptible to this specific attack, and she was basically telling leadership how the attack had propagated. And the peanut gallery, it wasn't me. I will say, John, it was not me. It was somebody else. I don't know if they're playing Stump the Chump. They raised their hand and they said, "Hey, how do you know that you've been attacked?" Well, because this document that I printed out from my IDS said so. And what happens if your IDS has been compromised? Yeah, I get it. Machine learning, all of that good stuff. Great. But what happens if your IDS has been
right?
Then what? Is your report true or is it false? Because one of the things as certified ethical hackers, we'll just use that term. If you go into an organization and you do something, you're going to do what's called cover your tracks. You're going to back up out of there. So I said all that to say that yes, machine learning is great. I don't think we'll ever get to the place to where we will replace the human in the loop. And I'm all for machine learning. I talk about this in my dissertation, but there are ways that we can reduce our risk to get away from this kind of alert fatigue. John, I'll tell you, I've been in organizations and interviewing folks in organizations and on the watch floor, and they'll say, "Hey, I'm looking through 500 alerts a day. Dr. Robinson, I don't really know which alerts I should spend time on." Well, it's a situation where machine learning can help you, right?
Yeah, that's a practical application.
Yep.
Dr. Tim Robinson, you got the last word here. So I view this as a journey, and your job here is to tell me, is it going to be a long journey? Is it going to be a short journey? Is it going to be with bandits on the road journey? So what kind of journey are we looking at in the future for Sassy?
I think if you keep an open mind, I will tell you that the U.S. government is pushing towards cloud adoption rapidly. Organizations are already there. So I think the journey is what we make it, right? If you try to handle this alone, I completely recommend against that, because again, we as security guys can tend to be stubborn in the way we're comfortable with what we are comfortable with when our job is to secure the castle, right? So you start introducing these things, these new paradigms, these new frameworks that don't necessarily make sense, that don't come without their inherent risks as well. I think we can make decisions that will ultimately end up hurting the organization in the future. So I think you said it right. You look at it as a journey, but you also pick up people along the way in that journey. Think of Worldwide Technology as Sherpas. We're helping you go along this journey so that you can make the right informed decisions the whole way. I like to call the people I work with not customers, but partners. I partner with our customers to help them understand where they are currently, where they need to go so that we can hit the appropriate milestones to get there.
Well, the milestone we're reaching is the end of this podcast.
Oh, man, we're having so much fun.
Yeah. You've been listening to the Federal Tech Podcast with John Gilroy. I'd like to thank my guest, Dr. Tim Robinson, Consulting Solution Architect at Worldwide Technology.
Thanks for listening to the Federal Tech Podcast. If you like the Federal Tech Podcast, please support us by giving us a rating and review on Apple Podcast.